Hello and welcome to the Riverbank and Trust Cash Management Training. Today we will be covering how to build a batch within the Internet Banking product. Our first step is going to be logging in to Internet Banking. If you have not already completed the first-time login process where you establish your username and password, please reference the video related to that particular piece. For those that have already done that, you are simply going to log into the system. Once you've logged into Internet Banking, we're going to navigate to the Cash Manager menu option here, and we're going to go to ACH. In the ACH management area, you will see a couple different options here: create batches, import from file, and participants. Today what we'll be going over is the current batches area. This is going to allow you to create a brand new batch within the system, or it will also allow you to use batch templates or edit and resubmit previous batches. Now, the participants area is where your detail records exist, and you will pull that information across. If you don't have any participants already, you are more than welcome to go to this particular tab and set those up. What that is going to allow you to do is insert those records into future batches, and if you should need to make any changes, such as an employee that's in your payroll file, changes accounts or banks or anything like that, you can update it here in the participants area, and that information will then trickle down into any batch where you have inserted them. For the actual batch creation, you have two options here. If you don't have any batch templates, you have the option to create a new scheduled batch or an unscheduled batch. Now, the only difference between these options is that a scheduled batch will have the effective date field in it for you to set as you're creating it. The unscheduled, of course, it does not have that field in it, but it can be edited and the date can be added at any point in time. Think of the unscheduled batch area as a batch template or a work in progress area where you can build something, save it, and then come back to it later to finish it off. For the purpose of this video, we're going to go ahead and do a scheduled batch. We will click on the little plus sign there next to the wording. That is going to open up a blank edit batch screen. Our first area is the batch information and scheduling. This is where we are going to set the batch name, company, and so forth. Up here at the top, we do have 4 fields that are marked with an asterisk. These are required items, so you will need to put some piece of information in there. We'll start with the batch name, then move over here to the select account. In this case, the user has 2 accounts that are available for ACH origination. I just choose the appropriate one and keep moving down the list. Entry description, and then company. When choosing your company, it will enter the display name, company ID, and so forth that is associated with that. We do have a discretionary data field here if you need to add to the entry description. The next item down is the entry class. We're going to go ahead and leave that as PPD. Our scheduling area here, we have the option of one-time and recurring, or if for any reason we need to not schedule this at this time and want to come back to it later, we can switch it back to that unscheduled. If you were to start with an unscheduled, this would be the option you would choose to change that to an actual scheduled item. One time means this batch, of course, is only going to process once, and then it will move to your unscheduled area where you will have access to it later to edit the information, put a new effective date on it, and resubmit. Recurring is going to be for those items where you want it to repeat on a certain frequency. This is best used for batches that really don't have changes that happen regularly, and this will allow you to submit in a more automated process on a scheduled frequency. For this purpose, we will do the one-time option. Our next option over is holiday. What this is going to do is, should your effective date fall on a bank holiday or a weekend, the system will recognize that and it will bump the effective date to the business day before or the business day after, whichever one you choose as the best option for your process. And then, of course, that leaves us with the effective date. This is the date that you would like the transactions to hit the accounts, whether those are debits or credits. This permission here, the save and unscheduled batches, this is what's going to, after this batch is done processing, move it to our unscheduled area. It is checked. So what that's going to do is basically save this batch as a template for me to use in the future. Once I have filled in all of my information here, I'm going to go ahead and save this batch. That is now going to give me the ability to add batch transactions. There are two options down here, add new details and add participants. The add new details adds a blank detail record. What this is going to do is allow you to key in the information of the person that you are either debiting or crediting. The only downfall of doing a detail record over a participant is this detail record only exists in this one batch. Whereas I mentioned earlier with the participants, you have a whole area to edit their information, and so they can exist in multiple batches and you can update that information in one place versus the details where you have to find the individual batch. For the adding of participants, you will click on the plus sign. It's going to give you a drop-down box here. When I click on the drop-down, I see all of my available participants, and in the case of Mr. Stark here, he has 2 accounts set up under his participant record, and that is denoted out here with the account name that one is a checking and one is a savings. At this point, I can selectively choose the participants I want to add, or I can do a check all to include every single one of them. After I've selected the appropriate participants, I click outside of the drop-down to collapse it and click on the Select Participants button. What that has done is added those records here. As you can see, the name, account, that information is now grayed out because you won't edit that information within the batch itself anyway. That is done under that participants area. It does, however, leave the amount fields available for me, as well as the pre-note option, the debit option if that is a permission you have, and the identification field if you should need to add an employee ID or anything like that for a payroll file. Our system does also allow for payment-related info. This is going to be a description field that you can use to put additional information on this particular credit or debit. If the item is going to be a pre-note, then the amount field will stay $0 and it will send out the appropriate pre-note item to the receiving institution. And that's all you need to do with it. Check that box and move to the next one. If you have the capability to send debits and credits, then a credit, you simply key in a dollar amount, and that is the only thing you will need to do. If it is going to be a debit, you will simply check the box here under the DR, and that will then mark this particular item as a debit. Now that I have added amounts to all of my participants here, I'm going to go ahead and do a Save All. That will then collapse the information to make it easier to read. And we see here all of my participants, account, routing, as well as the item that's been marked as a pre-note, the ones that are credits, and the one debit. Now you can see here my credits and debits don't match up. It is currently not balanced. That is okay. Through the processing, through our internet banking, the system is going to use the offsetting account you set up here earlier to balance out this file when it actually goes to send. If all of my information is correct here, I am going to save my batch. There is an approve option over here to the left. What this is going to do is, if I leave that checked, mark this as an approved item for the bank to see that I, as the customer, am good with this going out. If I were to uncheck that item and save the batch, it would save it as an unapproved item, and that would note to the bank that you are not ready for them to process on their side. Okay, once it is saved, I can return to the previous screen. And now in my scheduled batches area, we have the batch that was created, including our participants. We have name, entry description, entry class, our effective date, total debits and credits, and the status of this batch as an approved item. Should you need to change anything on this batch before the bank processes it, you can simply click on the batch name. That will reopen that edit batch screen, where then you can change everything from the effective date down to the amounts within the participant area. There is also a print option over here if you like to keep a hard copy of any batches submitted, and that will allow you to print it there on your machine and keep that for your records. And that is it for creating a batch within internet banking utilizing participants. Thank you.